everyone knows who JK Rowling is. So yeah, so they're trying to get her cancelled. Good luck, is what I say.
JK Rowling recently made comments that many figures in the media called transphobic, but others are standing by her side. Here to talk with us about this today is Madeline Kearns, who has been closely following the whole JK Rowling controversy, and she has a few pieces up on National Review about it right now called JK Rowling Back in the Hot Seat and JK Rowling versus Woke Supremacy. Maddie, thanks for being here. For any viewers who may not have been following this as closely, could you quickly talk through about why JK Rowling is in the news right now?
Sure. So the first thing she did was she tweeted out a critique of an article talking about people who menstruate. And her point was, didn't we used to have a word for people who menstruate? And she sort of poked fun at this and suggested, did it begin with a W? Was it wompud, or something? Obviously, her point being that women menstruate and that's it. But of course, this got the gender police up in arms, and so she was criticised as being transphobic and all the rest of it, which is not actually the first time this has happened to her. The article you referenced back in the hot seat was alluding to previous things she's done simply by liking something or retweeting something which challenges transgender orthodoxy. So, what she then went on to do this time round was after this tweet, she posted quite a long and thoughtful essay on her website, which was subsequently published by the Times of London, explaining exactly what her position on transgender issues is and why she holds it. And it was really well done, and it was clear that she's been following the issue very closely for 2 years. She has a number of reasons to be personally invested in it, from her charitable givings. She's invested in like children's charity, women's charity, so she's interested in safeguarding and single sex spaces. And also, she's a domestic abuse survivor, so she obviously is very concerned about men abusing women in what should be safe spaces. So, anyway, most of the people attacking her obviously haven't read her thoughtful piece, or even if they did read it, they wouldn't actually know how to process it because they see this issue in such a grotesquely oversimplified way. So yeah, so it's one of those controversies which is really only controversial to like a small number of people in the metropolitan elite, and to I think the rest of the country, they'd be like, wait, she said what? Like, what's the issue, kind of thing.
Well, and you see this reaction coming out of the media and looking at the media headlines, and you write a little bit about this, the reaction to what she said, and you call it a manufactured media storm, and you're calling out outlets like the New York Times and NBC News for their headlines reacting to J.K. Rowling. What are they leaving out of their stories? What should the media be saying here?
Right. So the media do this in a number of issues where they they basically say like, you know, um, there's big backlash to something so somebody said, right? Okay, well, backlash from whom? It's kind of begging the question, isn't it? And it's backlash from themselves. So it's really just like kind of like a manufactured controversy. So in this case, there's this Twitter storm, absolutely, and there's these like self-appointed uh, thought leaders and influencers have this reaction and think she's a bigot and think that we've got to throw out Harry Potter and defund her and deplatform her and all that kind of stuff. Um, and so they end up like doing these articles like quoting these types of people. There's a New York Times article, I'm looking at it right now, and it's J.K. Rowling fans imagine Harry Potter world without her. So like how, because obviously her books are really popular, so you had these like op-eds from trans people saying that, oh well, like that Harry Potter was what got me through my childhood. Like now I've realized she's transphobic, can't possibly like read this is so devastating, all this kind of stuff. Anyway, which, the natural response to that is like, get a life, it's fiction.
And going off of that, you're saying that media are only reporting one side to the story.
Right, yeah,
And
yeah.
in one of your pieces, you compile these reactions of people who are standing with J.K. Rowling, and they include trans people and feminists, women, researchers, writers. Did any of their reactions in particular stand out to you, or could you talk a little bit about what they're saying?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So this is something that like I I was saying like I think most people would read what she actually said and think I don't really see an issue. And among that is like actually, as you mentioned, like trans people. And so I'm in contact with a bunch of trans people just because I've been doing this like beat for a while, who argue that the very basis for them being trans is that they like were unhappy with their sex, and they're not actually of the impression that they're now magically the opposite sex. It's that they have taken very difficult and grueling and permanent decisions to alter their physical selves to more closely resemble the opposite sex. And the kind and small L liberal thing to do is to accommodate them insofar as that is reasonable. And I think most people, and that's my position, most people really do not have a problem with that. And their argument is that these kind of extremists and absolutists who are attacking JK Rowling for such a moderate position on the issue are actually really doing their cause harm, because this whole basis of being accommodated insofar as it's reasonable is built on a relationship of mutual trust and respect between trans people and wider society. Um, and so yeah, so I got a couple of quotes from them, and I also spoke to feminists and also like experts in the field. So a guy called Ken Zucker, who is a childhood psychologist in gender, specializes in gender dysphoria, has done so much research in this, and the author of an upcoming book, Irreversible Damage is the name of the book. It's by Abigail Schreier, who writes for the Wall Street Journal. She's got some like great articles as well in this stuff. So it's just people who've really like informed and like know what the various parts of this debate are just like don't really see what she said as being particularly objectionable.
One last question. Tuesday this week, you wrote about JK Rowling and how she can't be canceled. Are people trying to cancel JK Rowling, and if so, who?
Yeah, so as we know, the publishing and journalism worlds are just completely overrun by these woke people like our age, and they do have disproportionate influence, and that has landed a lot of people in hot water and having to be fired. And like, you know, National Review knows this from what happened to like Kevin Williamson, for example. And now some people in both the literary agency that J.K. Rowling has and Hatchet Publishing have tried to oust her. And surprise, surprise, the publicist and agent is slightly more concerned about like all the money that J.K. Rowling brings in. I think this is pure. I don't think this is them having like particular integrity. To be perfectly honest, I think this is just like a no-brainer political calculation. I mean, I do not know a single thing any of the people complaining about her have written. Never heard of them. Never read their books. I can't even remember their names right now. I literally read it an hour ago. Don't even remember their names to tell. Everyone knows who J.K. Rowling is. So yeah, so they're trying to get her cancelled. Good luck, is what I say. But that's not to say that there's not like consequences for J.K. Rowling. I'm sure that there will be, and I'm sure that she'll lose some of her incredibly vast wealth, and she will be inconvenienced and slighted and in all sorts of ways. So it did come at some cost.
Well, and she's still working on books right now, right? And that's part
That's
of
right. Yes. So yes, exactly. So she has a forthcoming book called The Ichabog, I think it is. It's a children's book. It's and she's been collecting sort of illustrations from kids online, and it looks very very sweet. Um, Obviously, it has absolutely nothing to do with transgenderism. There's no like transgender message. There's no transphobic message in there. And so what the publisher actually said was, they said, look, we respect our staff's right not to work on a book when they find the content of the book very, very upsetting. But we don't really respect the decision to not work on a book when the content is completely benign and inoffensive, just because you don't like something else that the writer who wrote that book said in some other capacity. So that seems to be the position that they've taken and probably will still take. And to be honest, I just think that in fact Douglas Murray, who also writes for National Review, had a good point where he said, you know, maybe it's time to just tell these people, like, if you don't grow up, then we'll fire you. Like, you know, if you're going to throw a tantrum like this, then you can just get lost. We'll replace you. I think that's probably is the appropriate management style, though I doubt that many will actually implement it.